Hello, bonjour, namaste. Welcome to the Canada and India show, where we meet the people that make up the vibrant Canada-India relationship. Every week, we interview leaders in their fields to dive into who they are and what drives them. From the arts to trade to human rights, we will discover together how rich and diverse this relationship really is.
Hi, I'm Annie Dubé, Canada's Consul General in Mumbai, India, and you are listening to the Canada in India show. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a surprise guest host, my colleague Carlos Rojas-Arbulú, Consul and Senior Trade Commissioner at the Canadian Consulate General in Mumbai, who will share with us a special tete-a-tete with Ailish Campbell, Canada's Chief Trade Commissioner, during her recent visit to Mumbai. Ailish Campbell is the Chief Trade Commissioner of Canada since March 2017. She leads a global team of trade and international business development experts to help companies and Canadian education institutions go global, grow, and create jobs. Please join us, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, welcome to the Canada-India show. My name is Carlos Rojas-Arbulú. I'm the Consul and Senior Trade Commissioner at the Canadian Consulate General. We're very excited to welcome today Dr. Ailish Campbell, Canada's Chief Trade Commissioner and Assistant Deputy Minister at Global Affairs Canada. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks to you and the entire India team of Canada and the Trade Commissioner Service for having me.
It's our pleasure. You've been in India now for a few days. Tell us about the cities that you've visited and so far your generic impressions about what you've seen during your trip.
Well, it's been a fantastic trip, Carlos. The entire team has put together a fantastic program for me. This isn't my first time in India. I was here in 2014 with the Governor General, David Johnston, at the time, where we visited Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. It was a fantastic introduction. So I have to say, I feel lucky that I've come to India with a bit of a background and a real enthusiasm for this market for Canada, all of the potential that it holds in terms of Indian demand for excellent Canadian goods and services. And on this trip, I've been in Delhi, Bangalore, Pune, and now Mumbai.
Those are a lot of miles, a lot of kilometers that you've
I've earned my stripes.
Excellent. And given that you've been in India before on a couple of occasions, which strikes you as some of the differences if you were to compare, the last time you were here and this time around?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic to see some of the infrastructure improvements. So I want to take note, particularly the airport connectivity, major roads and highways. It's been exciting to see some real improvements there. I also think, to my mind, one of the changes has been that I'm seeing even more strong Indian women in leadership positions. That's really exciting, but there's so much more, to come. I think one part that surprises me is the clear need and demand around water and sanitation. It was so clear to me the last time that I was here. And we see the Indian demand matched with Canadian capabilities in this area. And that needle still hasn't been, moved as much as I would like. Safety, water safety, speaking as a mother, I think that, safe drinking water and sanitation are something that, every mother, every father wants for their children.
Yes,
and that's certainly something that, Canada can bring to India, but also that, frankly, I think every Indian deserves. Yeah.
Absolutely. Knowing that you are currently Canada's Chief Trade Commissioner, what strikes you as perhaps the areas of your work as you're traveling in different parts of the world, as you're traveling to India? Because it is a big organization, I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Trade Commissioner Service itself is 160 offices around the world. And I think one of the really magical pieces of our Trade Commissioner Service is that we have locally engaged staff, people that speak the local language, who know the local business customs, who have deep contacts in the market. I'm thrilled that we have incredible locally engaged staff here in India who've been with us a decade or more, and they provide an incredible amount of connectivity for our Canadian businesses. I met a fantastic Canadian company, Clearford, yesterday, and he was saying to me, working with the Trade Commissioner Service is like having 10 marketing VPs across India working just for my company.
Right.
That's one of the exciting things. Of course, every market is attuned to its own specifics. Our other largest trade programs, of course, would be in the United States of America, in China, and as well across Europe and Brazil. So we have very large trade commissioner services around the world just waiting to be used by Canadian exporters looking to sell their products and services around the world. But wherever I go, the team is always amazing.
Yeah.
And in particular, like I said, Carlos, it's really fun to meet our locally engaged staff who do so much for Canada and that provide us such good market intelligence and stability to our team. It's really awesome.
Oh, that's great. And if you can share with us maybe a personal experience or an anecdote from some of the travels that you've done around the world, is there something that comes to mind that you can share with your audience?
Yeah. Well, I don't need to go back in time. I can just pick something from my trip. For example, I thought I was flying from Bangalore to Pune direct. And then I got on this Air India flight and it had another destination. And you're going to have to help me. I think it was called Belgaum. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, did you know I'm like stopping in the, on this other. Anyway, turns out I was taking this wonderful little hopper on my way to Pune. And I sat down and a Sikh gentleman sat down beside me and we were sitting together for about an hour. And then at one point he asked me about the book that I was reading and we got to talking, and he's Canadian and he was born in India, but then raised in Canada, emigrated with his family to Vancouver and is now back in India. So we had an amazing chat. And, he was telling me all about Indian history. Anyway, he got off on this little stop because we have an amazing Canadian company that has a partnership with an Indian steel company, in the middle of the country. And he was with his management team. So it was really fun. Like everywhere I go, there's always, an interesting, either someone is Canadian or is interested in Canada or has a child or cousin or, someone they hope can study in Canada or emigrate. So really it's fun. I feel such privilege and it's such an honor to go around the world and represent our incredible country and just see the connectivity and interest that it sparks whenever people, for example, he noticed my Canada-India pin I was wearing on my jacket. That sparked the whole conversation. But anyway, wherever I go, it's always nice to have conversations, about what people think about Canada, what they hope for their children, and what Canadian values like inclusion, equality between the genders, our deep respect for human rights, on top of being a great place to do business.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's really great to hear that as you are going about your travels, you're meeting these individuals that can tell a story that actually is very much part of the Canada-India story because, as we know, the people-to-people linkages are very strong with our country. And maybe you yourself have met a number of Canadians of Indian origin that are currently very much part of the fabric of that people-to-people relationship and growing the business.
Absolutely. That's right. And we really benefit from their expertise. That's right.
Excellent. Thank you. I know that the Trade Commissioner Service is over 100 years old. Mm-hmm. That's a very decent history. We've done a lot of work over the years.
It is incredible. I think, what's interesting is there's a lot of history. First of all, behind the name, the Trade Commissioner Service is so called because we used to, 125 years ago, commission the trade of Canada. We would go out to businesses and say, we commission you to sell logs, or we commission you, to sell iron ore or any of our other amazing natural resources. And I think what's exciting now is it's really businesses commissioning us. It's really our small and medium-sized enterprises, our incredible growth companies, our large exporters. We've got some incredible Canadian companies working with us just around the world. And really, they're giving us their orders. And that's exciting. We're also constantly innovating. So, I cast my mind back. Our first trade commissioner went to Australia to increase Canadian exports. This was before even our department was created. We have then had trade commissioners sent all over the world, South Africa, Britain and France, Norway, Japan, Mexico. But when I think about, what's really exciting me now, we have those 160 offices. What's going to be the next 125 years? And that, sometimes seems sort of impossible to imagine. But, 3 ambitions I have for us as we look forward is that we go more digital, that we take our incredible information services and create more online value digital content for our exporters. And secondly, that we really focus our time and attention on our high growth companies, companies that show a huge potential for rapid growth, companies that what we call are born global. So I think, if you had a traditional resource or let's say even a manufacturing company, chances are that started off as a Canada-US business maybe Canada, US, UK, 100 years ago. Companies now, whether it's e-commerce platforms and they're putting their good or their service, their product onto an e-commerce platform, or they're an IT company, they're born global. They can be in 20 markets within the first 18 months of their existence. So what's really exciting is to see our Canadian Technology Accelerator program, coming to India, coming back, where we can deepen our services for those born global companies. And the third thing is that the Trade Commissioner Service really take our values of inclusion and respect for every single entrepreneur and exporter and mainstream that into our business. We have a fantastic program for women in trade. We're doing more dedicated services for Indigenous Canadians. I'm really proud of the partnership that we created just this year with the Canadian Council of Aboriginal Business that found that of Canadian average SMEs, about 13% of them are exporters. But of Indigenous-owned businesses, 26% of them are exporters. So we have this incredible untapped potential. It's actually not untapped. It's just, are we, as the Trade Commissioner Service, as our active truth and reconciliation, really committed to partnering with all of our Indigenous businesses across Canada? And of course, we have so much more room to grow, I think, in that respect.
Right.
So that's kind of my third vision for the future, is that we encourage and empower all SMEs that want to become exporters, that they see that this service is their service.
Right. And I think that very much connects to the India story as well. We were talking about people-to-people linkages, but it also connects to Canada's value proposition. I hear a lot people talking about what Canada has to offer and how Canada is competitive. And I think what you were referring to is that value proposition. Many of the ecosystems that we have across the country, the supple clusters, maybe that's something that you want to share with us in terms of what makes Canada a partner of choice.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 things. Number one, the talent piece, the ability to come and study. First of all, our EduCanada brand, I hope everyone is aware of the fantastic, not only universities, but also our colleges and technical training organizations that provide a high quality of education. We're seeing Indian students go across the country. It's been also fantastic to see the growth in that market, not only in the Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgarys of the world, but also in some of our other destinations, Halifax, the province of New Brunswick, Moncton. It's been great to see Indian students coming and discovering our technical and higher education services. That's fantastic. Then secondly, the opportunity to come perhaps as a skilled worker and work with a Canadian company or an Indian multinational. I mean, there's incredible Indian companies that we want to see, come into the Canadian market that are already incredibly strong in the Canadian market. The Wipros, the Infosys, Tech Mahindras are just some of the people, that we work with. And coming to Canada, perhaps as a skilled worker, working with some of those organizations, or as for example, a technical worker here in India, going back and forth between Canada and India. We offer, I think, a really fantastic travel experience, direct flights from Mumbai to Toronto, direct flights from Toronto to Delhi, and we're working on more direct flights with an incredible partner, Air Canada. So I think, Canada's actually a lot closer than Indians perhaps may realize, especially with those great flights. So we're really proud of that piece of connectivity. And again, to come back to it, we see the future of artificial intelligence. India has 1.3 billion individuals. Canada has 38 million. You can see how the value proposition of being able to partner with Indian businesses to train our algorithms, our artificial intelligence systems, our data systems, and data analytics on Indian data with the right partner could also be an incredible value proposition.
Absolutely.
So those borders matter less when we're dealing with digital and data-based projects, but the ability of Canadian companies to come to India to partner on everything from agriculture technology to mobility solutions based on the incredible pools of information. And of course, the India stack of government services is really impressive. So we're looking forward to all those kinds of partnerships.
Excellent. I think that's a good segue to maybe take a look at some of the things that you're hearing while you're in Mumbai and the time that you spend in other cities. Certainly, there's areas of cooperation, partnership. potential opportunities around, you're talking about data analysis, artificial intelligence, those strategic areas of conversation. Those are the things that you're hearing from industry, from government, from stakeholders as part of sort of the next wave of things that we maybe can grow bilaterally?
For sure, absolutely. Anything related to technical and engineering talent, artificial intelligence, and big data is absolutely an area for us, what some people might call deep tech, as well, the connected life. So people living on their mobile phones and connecting various parts of their life, their systems, could be hardware at home, to their mobile, and living that connected life. Also, people's real interest in energy uses, climate changes, and climate change adaptation and mitigation is a huge priority for the Government of Canada. And I think it's really important that we take a look at some of the value that Canadian businesses can provide. I can also say that Indian companies have and Indian entrepreneurs have a lot of advice for us. One is that the Indian market is very price sensitive. So creating products that are very conscious of the very demanding, price-sensitive Indian consumer. Secondly, leveraging Indian talent and understanding, what the Make in India program, for example, of Prime Minister Modi and his government means in terms of finding potential partners. So, yes, go it alone, but also in order to drive down costs, a lot of Canadian companies may come, and we've seen really powerful examples. For example, we were visiting Magna International, a car parts manufacturer in Pune. They have Canadian technology and know-how. They combine that with incredible Indian engineering and, of course, fabrication of metals. And they're driving down costs by having their Asian market facilities here in India and partnering with car manufacturers, OEMs, everyone from Tata to Ford. So you can really see how there's a win-win between those synergies. But understanding the Indian market at a deep level, the last thing I'll say is we've been told by everyone to have patience. So, India is definitely not a fast market. So really understanding who your client is, either coming to India and dedicating time and attention to it, return visits, or having an Indian team, even just one person based here in India in order to do your sales and marketing, was another piece of the puzzle that we were advised to think really carefully about by Indian entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Well, that's really powerful. I think when you hear those stories and you are able to understand better what Canadian investors require in terms of a flourishing environment for investment is a really powerful message so as to be able to drive further business and further investment. So very interesting that you visited a few of these investors. There's quite a story about Canadian investment in India that also includes the institutional investors. And those numbers are quite high.
Yeah, we're really excited to see both private sector Canadian companies because we, at the end of the day, the government wants to create a very efficient business environment. And then we rely on the private sector, right, in order to provide goods and services. Lots of co-innovation, of course, going on. But to see some of our, biggest Canadian companies take larger positions in the Indian market, I can think of Brookfield, for example, that's recently bought the Leela Palace hotel chain. They're increasing their assets here. Fairfax is very well known in India, very highly diversified. And entities, tech companies like OpenText, which have a fantastic engineering facility here in several locations across India. That's really powerful to see. You talked about the pension funds. You talked about, for example, our national pension fund, which is the Canada Pension Plan, also our provincial pension plans, CDPQ, and many others. They're here and they're really trying to tap into the huge potential that they see in the Indian market. So that's a very positive signal. These are, of course, some of our largest entities, and they can have that long-term, patient, value-driven look at the market. And I think then the challenge and the opportunity for us is to really find more Canadian companies with technologies who can be in the supply chain of some of the investments, who can be matched into the market. So there's opportunities, if you will, for investors and exporters of all sizes. That's a huge challenge in the Indian market, but one that I think the Trade Commissioner Service is really dedicated to.
Right. Absolutely. I think there's certainly a very positive story there. There's a narrative that continues to emerge with regards to a growing partnership, growing investment, and frankly, growing investment in both ways. Because as you have probably heard over the last couple of days, there's also quite a bit of Indian investment in Canada. Some of the larger groups are there, And that is making a real difference in our economy.
Absolutely.
So certainly, I mean, as you're wearing your hat of Chief Trade Commissioner Service and you're working across the federal government, you're certainly privy to that impact of that Indian investment into Canada and what it actually means for our economy.
For sure. And it means thousands of jobs. It means, more connectivity to the global supply chains of Indian multinationals. It's a total win-win in that respect. I also think that, again, Indian multinationals bring a real sense of the price point and what it takes for Canada to be competitive in their global operations. That's very powerful. We're seeing a lot of, again, tech-intensive and engineering partnerships, which is, I think, again, underscoring those people-to-people linkages. And I would say we also have a really powerful entity, and I hope you guys will have them on your show at some point on your podcast, which is the Invest in Canada team. And they're, promoting and marketing the incredible assets and value propositions of investing in Canada and are working with some of those large Indian investors into Canada to make sure that they have a smooth relationship once they're there.
Absolutely. I think that will be a great guest to have in a future podcast. Thank you so much. Dr. Campbell, let's maybe turn to a little bit more on the personal side. I mean, you're very passionate about the work that you've done so far with the Trade Commissioner Service, leading a global team around 160 missions around the world. Where does that passion come from? I know you have an economics background, but certainly something that you wanted to do early on.
I can honestly say I had no idea that my career would end up here or, this chapter of my life. And it's been absolutely awesome. And every day I'm totally inspired by our global team, by the energy and passion that they bring to Canadian entrepreneurs and business owners. And it's actually the companies themselves as well. Our North Star is our client. When we keep them at the heart of the relationship, we remember, kind of what our purpose is. And enabling those businesses has been an absolute pleasure. And we meet such fantastic entrepreneurs who are creating jobs for their communities back home. And the only way they can, continue to drive that growth is through international sales. So how can we continue to make exporting as easy as possible? It's a total passion project, and it's been so much fun.
Wonderful. That's really, really great to hear that passion continues to drive the Trade Commissioner Service forward. And of course, adapting as things are unfolding, listening to the clients and our stakeholders, to grow those relationships internationally, including the India story, which, as we have been learning, is one that continues to grow both on the trade and the investment side. We're very grateful that you've spent this time with us. Are there perhaps any advice, any views, any anecdotes that you want to leave us with respect to what you've seen or with respect to what you would like to see in the next year or two? Because hopefully we'll have you back in the next couple of years.
I think the main message is for anyone who's listening to feel that they can find us just by Googling Trade Commissioner, our Trade Commissioner Service. So find us and use us. Find out more about how we can help your company. We have an incredible support facility for small businesses, a sort of 50-50% cost sharing service for international market development called the Can Export Program. So I would be remiss if I didn't finish the podcast by saying, for every small business that's listening to this podcast who's in Canada, take a look at the Can Export Program, find us and use the Trade Commissioner Service. And for all of our Indian listeners, I hope that you learn something about Canada. I hope that you can also continue to give us advice about better promoting Canada in this market, making it attractive and easy to do business with. And, it's just an absolutely, if not overwhelming, certainly fantastically large opportunity to do business in India. And we need great Indian partners. So, create an act, if you will, of India-Canada friendship. Think about a Canadian business that you can reach out and help, or something that you can do in order, like I said, to give us advice about how we can better position our country in this amazing nation of India.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And to our listeners, we've talked about trade, we've talked about investment, we talked about people-to-people linkages, about education, and we know that there's 200,000 Indians studying in Canada, and that's a very powerful story as well. Please reach out to us. Let us know how that advice and how those suggestions can come through so we can continue building that story of growth between our countries. And thank you again, Dr. Campbell, for your time here. Ailish. And
Thanks,
we very much look forward to the next time.
That was fun.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to our guest host, Carlos Rojas-Arbulú, for this special episode with Ailish Campbell on the growing Canada-India trade stories. Please join us next week, where Marie-Hélène Ward shares with us her journey through travel in Canada and India.
We are thrilled that you shared this time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on our social media channels. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, we are at Canada in India. You can listen to all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, so please do subscribe. Thank you. Merci. Dhanyavad.